This is a simple story. A story about daily life. A story about small conversations. A story about English used in real moments. You will hear simple words. You will hear short sentences. Then you will hear longer conversations. Nothing is fast. Nothing is difficult. This story moves slowly, just like real life. Listen carefully. Let the words feel normal. You do not need to repeat. You do not need to stop. Just listen. This is the journey of one person. But it can be your journey too. The story begins now. There was a young man named Samir. Samir lived in a small rented room. The room was simple. A bed, a table, a chair, a small window. Every morning, Samir woke up early. Not very early, but early enough. He sat on the bed for a few seconds. He looked at the wall. He took a deep breath. Then he stood up. Samir washed his face. He brushed his teeth. He got ready slowly. He did not like to rush. Rushing made him tired. He wore clean clothes. He checked his phone. He put it in his pocket. Samir stepped outside. The street was already awake. People were walking. Shops were opening. Bikes were passing. Samir walked toward the bus stop. He liked walking. It helped him think. While walking, he heard different voices. Some people spoke loudly. Some spoke softly. Some people spoke English. Samir understood English. He could understand many words. He could understand sentences. But speaking was different. When he wanted to speak, his mind worked. But his mouth stayed quiet. He reached the bus stop. People were waiting. Some were standing. Some were sitting. A bus arrived. The door opened. Samir got in. He found a seat near the window. The bus started moving. Samir looked outside. Buildings passed. Roads passed. People passed. Inside the bus, two men were talking. They were speaking English. Not fast. Not slow. Samir listened. He did not try to understand every word. He just listened. The bus stopped. More people got in. A man stood near Samir. The man looked at him. He smiled. He said, "Is this seat free?" Samir looked up. He understood the question. He replied, "Yes." The man sat down. They stayed quiet for a while. Then the man said, "Busy morning." Samir replied, "Yes." The man nodded. That was all. Samir felt calm. He spoke one word, but it was enough. The bus reached the main road. Samir got down. He walked toward his workplace. The building was not big. It was simple. Many people worked there. Samir entered. He greeted the security guard. "Good morning." The guard replied, "Good morning." Samir felt normal. He went inside. He walked to his desk. He placed his bag. He turned on his computer. Emails started loading. Samir read them slowly. He understood them. One email was short. It said, "Please check the file." Samir opened the file. He checked it. Everything looked fine. He replied, "Checked." He sent the email. No extra words. No long sentence. Work continued. After some time, a colleague came near him. The colleague asked, "Did you see the message?" Samir replied, "Yes." The colleague asked, "Is it okay?" Samir replied, "Yes, it is okay." The colleague nodded. He walked away. Samir felt something inside. Not excitement. Not fear. Just calm. At lunchtime, Samir went outside. He walked to a small food place. People were sitting. People were eating. Samir stood in line. When his turn came, the man asked, "What do you want?" Samir replied, "Rice and vegetables." The man asked, "Here or take away?" Samir replied, "Here." The man nodded. Samir paid. He sat at a table. While eating, he looked around. A group of people sat nearby. They were talking in English. Their sentences were not perfect, but they were talking. Samir listened. He did not compare. He did not judge. He just listened. After lunch, Samir went back to work. The afternoon passed slowly. Some calls, some messages, some small talks. Samir answered when needed. Yes, no, okay, I will check. Each word felt easier than before. When work ended, Samir shut down his computer. He picked his bag. He stepped outside. The evening air felt different. Samir walked toward a nearby park. The park was quiet. A few people were walking. Some were sitting. Samir sat on a bench. He watched people. A boy was playing. An old man was reading. A woman was talking on the phone. The woman was speaking English. Samir listened. Her words were simple. Her voice was calm. Samir repeated some words in his mind. After some time, a man sat beside Samir. The man looked at the sky. He said, "Nice weather." Samir replied, "Yes, nice weather." The man smiled. They sat quietly. After a few minutes, the man stood up. He said, "Have a good evening." Samir replied, "You too." The man walked away. Samir stayed. He felt light. He did not speak much that day. But he spoke enough. Enough to feel normal. Enough to feel present. Samir stood up. He walked back toward his room. On the way, he stopped at a small shop. The shopkeeper asked, "Do you want something?" Samir replied, "Yes, water." The shopkeeper gave a bottle. Samir paid. He said, "Thank you." The shopkeeper replied, "Welcome." Samir walked away. He reached his room. He sat on the bed. He removed his shoes. He relaxed. He opened his phone. He played a short English video. Not loud, not fast. He listened. He repeated softly. Simple words. Simple sentences. After some time, he stopped the video. He lay down. Samir thought about the day. Nothing special happened. Nothing big. But something changed. English felt closer. Less heavy. Less distant. Samir closed his eyes. Tomorrow would come. Another day. Another chance. This was only the beginning. The next day started quietly. Samir woke up when light entered the room. The room was silent. Only outside sounds came in. He sat up slowly. He stretched his arms. He stood up. He followed the same routine. Wash. Brush. Get ready. Samir liked routine. It made him feel steady. After getting ready, he stepped outside. The street looked familiar. The same shops. The same people. But Samir felt a little different. He walked toward the bus stop. While waiting, he checked his phone. No new messages. A bus arrived. Samir got in. He stood near the door. The bus was crowded. A woman stood next to him. She looked tired. She said, "Long day ahead." Samir looked at her. He understood. He replied, "Yes." The woman nodded. They did not talk again. But that small reply stayed with Samir. He felt comfortable. The bus reached his stop. Samir got down. He walked toward work. At the entrance, a colleague greeted him. "Morning." Samir replied, "Morning." They walked inside together. At his desk, Samir opened his computer. Work started. A message came on the screen. It said, "Can you help with this report?" Samir read it twice. He understood it. Earlier, he would think a lot. But today, he typed calmly, "Yes, I will help." He sent the message. A few minutes later, the colleague came to his desk. "Thanks," the colleague said. Samir replied, "No problem." They discussed the report. The colleague spoke in English. Slow, clear. Samir listened. He understood. When needed, he replied, "Yes, that is fine. We can do this." The discussion ended. Samir felt normal. During the morning, more small talks happened. A question, a reply, a short sentence. Each time, Samir spoke without stopping himself. At lunch, Samir sat with a few colleagues. They talked about food. They talked about travel. They talked about small things. English mixed with other languages. Samir listened. Sometimes he replied, "I like simple food. I went there once. It was good." No one reacted. No one judged. The conversation moved on. After lunch, Samir returned to work. The afternoon felt slow. Around 4, his manager came near his desk. The manager asked, "Are you free for a minute?" Samir replied, "Yes." They walked to a small room. The manager sat down. Samir sat too. The manager said, "We have a visitor tomorrow." Samir listened. The manager continued, "He may ask some basic questions." Samir nodded. The manager said, "You can help." Samir replied, "Okay." The manager smiled. He said, "That is good." The meeting ended. Samir walked back. He felt a little pressure. But not fear. Just awareness. After work, Samir decided to walk instead of taking the bus. The weather was pleasant. The road was not crowded. He walked slowly. He passed shops. He passed people. At one place, he stopped to buy fruit. The seller asked, "What do you want?" Samir replied, "Apples." The seller asked, "How many?" Samir replied, "2." The seller gave the apples. Samir paid. He said, "Thank you." The seller replied, "Okay." Samir continued walking. He reached a small cafe. He had never gone inside before. Today, he stopped. He entered. A man behind the counter looked up. The man said, "Hello." Samir replied, "Hello." The man asked, "What would you like?" Samir looked at the board. He read slowly. He replied, "Tea." The man asked, "Milk or no milk?" Samir replied, "Milk." The man nodded. Samir waited. Another customer stood near him. The customer said, "Nice place." Samir replied, "Yes." The tea was ready. The man gave the cup. Samir paid. He said, "Thank you." He sat near the window. He drank slowly. He watched people outside. Some spoke on phones. Some walked silently. Samir felt relaxed. After finishing, he left the cafe. He walked back to his room. Inside the room, Samir placed the apples on the table. He sat on the bed. He felt tired, but calm. He opened his phone. He opened a note app. He typed a few lines. "Good morning. Thank you. No problem. I will help." He read them slowly. He said them quietly. Then he stopped. He put the phone down. Later in the evening, Samir went to the terrace. The sky was open. The air was cool. A man stood there. The man looked at Samir. He smiled. The man said, "Nice evening." Samir replied, "Yes." They stood there. After some time, the man asked, "Do you live here?" Samir replied, "Yes." The man asked, "Which floor?" Samir replied, "Second." The man nodded. They stood quietly. The man then said, "I work night shift." Samir replied, "Okay." The man smiled. After a few minutes, the man left. Samir stayed. He looked at the sky. He thought about the next day. There would be a visitor. There would be questions. Samir did not imagine big talks. He imagined small replies. "Yes, this way. Please sit." That felt enough. Samir went back inside. He lay down. He closed his eyes. His mind felt clear. English was not perfect, but it was moving. Slowly, naturally. The journey was continuing. The next morning came quietly. Samir woke up before the alarm. Light entered the room slowly. He sat up. He took a deep breath. Today felt different. He got ready with more care. He wore clean clothes. He checked himself once. Then he stepped outside. The street looked the same. But Samir felt alert. He walked toward the bus stop. At the bus stop, people were already waiting. A bus arrived. Samir got in. He stood near the door. Two people in front of him were talking. They spoke English. Samir listened. One said, "Is the meeting today?" The other replied, "Yes." "In the afternoon." Samir did not react, but he noticed the words. The bus stopped. Samir got down. He walked toward the office. At the entrance, the security guard said, "Good morning." Samir replied, "Good morning." His voice was clear. Inside, the office was active. People were talking. Phones were ringing. Screens were on. Samir walked to his desk. He turned on his computer. A message came. It said, "The visitor will come at 11. Samir read it. He understood. He did not reply. He just noted the time. Work continued. Around 10:30, his manager came near him. The manager said, "He is coming soon." Samir replied, "Okay." The manager said, "Please stay near the meeting room." Samir replied, "Yes." Samir stood up. He walked toward the meeting room. He stood outside. A few minutes later, a man walked in. The man looked around. He smiled. The manager walked forward. He greeted the man. Samir stood near them. The manager said, "This is Samir." The visitor looked at Samir. He smiled. They shook hands. They walked inside the room. Everyone sat down. The visitor looked at Samir. He asked, "Do you work here long?" Samir listened. He understood. He replied, "Yes, 2 years." The visitor nodded. The manager started talking. He explained the work. He explained the plan. The visitor listened. Sometimes, the visitor looked at Samir. He asked, "Can you show the file?" Samir replied, "Yes." He stood up. He opened the file. He showed it on the screen. The visitor looked at it. He said, "This looks fine." Samir replied, "Thank you." The meeting continued. Questions came. Answers came. Not fast. Not heavy. Samir spoke when needed. "Yes, this one. We can check." No one stopped him. No one rushed him. The meeting ended. The visitor stood up. He smiled. He said, "Thank you for your help." Samir replied, "You're welcome." The visitor left. The manager looked at Samir. He said, "Good work." Samir replied, "Thank you." Samir walked back to his desk. He sat down. His hands felt relaxed. He continued working. During lunch, Samir sat alone. He ate slowly. He thought about the meeting. He spoke. He listened. He helped. Nothing bad happened. After lunch, a colleague came to him. The colleague said, "You handled it well." Samir replied, "Thanks." The colleague smiled. He walked away. The afternoon felt light. Samir finished his tasks. At 6, he shut down his computer. He picked his bag. He stepped outside. The evening air felt calm. Samir decided to walk. He walked past shops. He walked past people. At one place, he stopped to buy tea. The man asked, "Tea?" Samir replied, "Yes." The man prepared the tea. Samir waited. Another man stood nearby. The man said, "Office day?" Samir replied, "Yes." The man nodded. The tea was ready. Samir took the cup. He drank slowly. He paid. He said, "Thank you." The man replied, "Okay." Samir continued walking. He reached a small park. People were sitting. Some were talking. Some were quiet. Samir sat on a bench. A boy was playing nearby. A couple was walking. Samir watched. He felt steady. After some time, a man sat beside him. The man said, "Long day?" Samir replied, "Yes." The man smiled. They sat quietly. After a while, the man said, "Work done?" Samir replied, "Yes." The man nodded. The man stood up. He said, "Good night." Samir replied, "Good night." Samir stayed. He looked at the sky. He thought about the morning, the meeting, the words. They were simple. They worked. Samir stood up. He walked back to his room. Inside the room, he placed his bag. He sat on the bed. He felt tired, but satisfied. He opened his phone. He typed a few lines. "Nice to meet you. Yes, 2 years. This looks fine. You're welcome." He read them once. He smiled softly. He put the phone down. Samir lay down. His body relaxed. His mind felt quiet. English was no longer heavy. It was part of the day. This story ends here. You listened to small moments. You listened to simple conversations. You listened to real English. Nothing was perfect. Nothing was heavy. Just normal words. Just normal life. If you understood this story, English is already working for you. You do not need to rush. You do not need to change overnight. Small words grow slowly, just like confidence. This journey does not stop here. It continues in daily life, in small talks, in simple replies. Carry these words with you. Use them when you need them. English is not separate from life. It is part of life. The story ends, but the journey continues.